Hello, thanks for joining me today. I'm Jerrel from Sungrad. I develop the Silver Falls games. Thought it'd be fun if we spent a bit of time looking at how I create characters, not just physically for the games, but in terms of design. That's always something that's interested me when I see games, and I think characters look very interesting. They've got an interesting and cool attitude. I always wonder about how the developers or the character designers come up with those characters, how they refine and then even bring them into the game space. So for starters, let's go ahead and have a look at Holt here. This is one of the main characters from 3 Down Stars, which is available on the 3DS. And again, I do have an update coming to 3 Down Stars on the 3DS. Hopefully within the next few weeks it's going to fix a lot of glitches and then bring in some massive improvements to performance and the visuals as well. So hopefully, again, the update for 3 Down Stars on the 3DS will, I'll submit that to Nintendo in a couple weeks, okay? So, this is something that people tend to ask about. People often say, oh man, that's a cool jacket. So we can see these are the highest quality assets, the highest fidelity assets that I've created. So going forward, even if I have to bring these characters into like the Switch 2 or whatever, I'm not saying that, Nintendo's working on that, but when Nintendo makes a newer console where games can support higher texture, higher resolution textures, then I'll have all my assets ready for that. So this is Holt's jacket. This is Keep Yourself Alive. You can see how the light hits that leather and the pattern on it as well. I quite like the way the light hits that, and I can imagine how cool this will look one day when we do a 3 Down Stars HD port. I think it would look pretty neat if we could see that in the game. So again, some of the visuals here are placeholders, like this is physics rigged, the headphones. If you have played episode Prelude, which is available now on the Switch, you can play as Holt in-game in the battle mode. So that's if you use Code Linker to connect 3 Down Stars to episode Prelude. You can play as Holt, you can check out, how cool this jacket looks in higher resolution. You zoom right in, you can sort of see the details on the jeans. It gets quite detailed in there in terms of the actual texture of the jeans themselves. Go ahead and tuck Holt away for now, and let's have a look at Annelies, one of our other 3 Down Stars protagonists. Now you might be wondering why I have this block here. So what I'm going to do is just hit the run button and see what Unity says in terms of how long it'll take to actually run this. There we go. So you can see it took a second for the physics simulation to catch up. I'm just going to move the character around and we'll see. So I put that block there so I can test the inverse kinematics and how the character responds to objects in their environment. I'm going to rotate the character around. You can see her legs kind of snap up there, drop back down. So this room helps me test that and make sure that if I need to make adjustments, for example, you can see at certain angles her leg might do something funny, so I can adjust the values as needed. You can also see her hair has some physics simulation as well, and her bracelets are physics simulated. So as she moves her arms around, the bracelets will respond accordingly. Her shirt has some physics simulation. Go ahead and stop running that. We'll have a close look. What I will do is I'll bring this view up here. And what I find interesting, I think I should rotate that character a little bit, shouldn't I, so we get a better look. Let's have a look here like that. This is a much higher quality Annelies model than we see in 3 Down Stars. So there's a bit more refinement I need to do for the hair simulation. It's getting a bit bunched up here. I quite like creating facial gestures and habits for the characters. So right now she can look around, her eyebrows raise and lower as she looks around, but her face doesn't really do anything. So the system that we've set up for Silver Falls games, so I'll go ahead and tuck that out of the way just to make that look neat here. So I have a framework I've created called Perpetual Emotion. Facial controls. Let's say I want to let's add 2 gesture tendencies. So we've seen her face idle. It doesn't really do anything. I think it's a little bit, I think it's very lifeless. So what I will do is I will target the tendency, and I will say this is for the lower face, and how about let's kiss to the left, okay? For the lower gesture, and we won't do anything for the upper gesture. So we want to, how often do we want to repeat this? So we want to see it occur. So I'll put a number in there so that we can see it happen pretty often, between 2 and 5 seconds. Okay, that's our first gesture. Let's do our second gesture. How about this time it will target the upper face? The upper gesture, let's say squint heavy. This can happen every 4 to 8 seconds. How about let's add one more? We'll do lower face again. We can put that on anything really. And what we will do for the lower gesture is, how about breathe medium, and let's say every 6 to 10 seconds. Okay. And now we have that applied to the character in there. What we want to do now is we will go ahead and run the game, and we should see those gestures be implemented in the character's habits. So let's move the character back in. Let's see what we get. So you can see she did take a breath there. She opened her mouth, and now she's kissed, and it moves a little to the left. It happens pretty often. So there we go. And of course there are quite a few modifiers that you can add as well. I wouldn't make this character, I wouldn't make any character this emotive so much, every couple seconds she's doing something crazy. You can dial down the intensity of the gestures. You can add habits to the way they speak, so the way they move their mouth when they speak. You can dynamically add modifiers so that each character can have a unique identifying way that their face animates as they talk. So they parse through lines of text. Let me see if I can show an example here. Let's see, Perpetual Emotion Tester. I'll put this in here. Let's just see. I haven't tested this, and I've been doing a lot of updates, so I don't know. Let's see. Don't leave that. What? You have selected Silverfall Sam as the computer's default voice. Let's go ahead and hit speak text. So you can see she has a bit of a frowny thing going on when she's speaking there. So let's see, what can we do? A speech modifier. What I would do is I would put like a smile right, okay? A mouth mod, wait, let's see. And that's to modify the mouth. So she's lowering her mouth is the mod. So what if we say, smile right, and then that's a speech modifier override. There's a lot of complicated things here. Let's say if I speak, I'm not sure if I have to reset it now before it's active. Oh no, it's active right away. So you can see now she's not lowering her mouth too far. Now it looks quite more natural, but it seems my frame rate seems to be falling through these floorboards here, so I don't know what's going on with Unity. Go ahead and hit run again. I apologize if the music is a bit too loud. I'll turn that down a little bit. How about that? Okay. So Unity seems to be having a moment to itself. It is, let's see if it has the choppy frame rate again, or if it's going to work properly this time. Okay, so now Unity's doing this fun little thing where the frame rate isn't great. So at least we've seen how I'm able to control characters' animations pretty quickly. I don't have to reprogram an entire animation system for each character, and that way each character feels individual as they speak, and I can implement these changes quickly. Now, I'd like to share a few more characters. So, in episode Prelude, we do get a close look at Ghoul Brandish. And that's, again, if you connect Undertakers to episode Prelude, you can unlock Ghoul Brandish. And here's just a closer look at him. I quite like these cool boots that he's got. I guess it's sort of a fantasy I quite like this color. I think it's a pretty rad color. So I've not really seen boots in this color, but for Silver Falls, I put a lot of thought to the visual, not just design, but the visual presentation of the characters, and especially in terms of layers and color and where the color appears on their characters. So the colors are layered in this way to keep an interesting overall outline to the character, not an outline, but in terms of a color palette, so that even if the camera were far away, the character still looks a bit interesting in terms of color, you know, especially for a game, if you were to appear in a game where I can't really keep track of where the camera's going to be, you know. So I had actually just finished a character today. Let's see if he's in here, and he ended up with a pretty rad design. I'm quite happy with the design. What I will do is I'll just turn up the lights a little bit. Let's grab this light and get a better look. So what I'm really pleased with his color palette. He's got this sort of a hot magenta to his shirt, and he has this deep blue for his pants. So this character is Base Boulderfield. He hasn't been introduced into the game series just yet. He's just, you know, enjoying life, living in the background of the games, but he hasn't participated actively in any Silver Falls game yet, but he will appear in upcoming titles. So for Base Boulderfield, he is a retired electrical engineer, and something that I wanted to make apparent in his design is his tendency to go towards modern things, and especially toward technology. So to communicate that visually, I explicitly restrict his accent materials to synthetic materials. So it would be this nylon sort of thing. He generally won't have natural materials like leather. So say, for example, if you take a character like Wood, move this box out of the way now. So Wood is a character that players might be familiar with from 3 Down Stars. He was in the background of that game, and players would find out that he runs the lumber mill. And you'll see a lot of his character is expressed visually through these sort of, he has a tough, rustic side to his character. So you'll have things like these leather pouches, and again, they're shiny, they're extra shiny, and that's because I know that the camera won't get very close to these characters in most situations, and it's better if these items catch light. And I know that, you know, there's very few situations where light is going to be shown directly onto the characters. So keeping that in mind, I make certain materials much shinier than they would be, knowing that light sources are almost always going to be more distant, and that helps these objects catch more light. So while they are less realistic in terms of how shiny they are, they visually present better in the environments that these characters will be existing and operating. Part of Wood's character, he's quite rustic, he's very handsy, he runs the lumber mill, he also does leather working, and so he creates his own belts and whatnot. So, like, say for example, this is one example. You know, he's made these custom looking shoes that have a kind of a pretty unique pattern to them. They look neat, you know. He makes his own leather gloves. He would have made these pouches. So that's a character that's more in tune and hands-on with nature. You can see his clothes are pretty dirty. He's always working outside. His jeans are kind of in rough shape, you know. And he's got earthy tones to his colors to let the viewer and the player know naturally this must be quite an outdoorsy, rustic character. For both, Base, sure, he looks, you know, a bit rugged, you suppose. You know, he seems to be quite in shape, but he has this more synthetic look to his accent materials. So, for example, the nylon, you know, so he doesn't have the sort of leather stuff. He's got this more modern-looking watch, and that's a placeholder. I'm going to create an electronic watch for him. I'll be creating a new texture for his hat as well, and these gold rimmed glasses give him a distinguished sense of intelligence. And I match the gold reflectiveness of his glasses to these metal accents here. It helps the design visually make sense, and it's more coherent as a character. So the lighting isn't great in this room, it's actually quite dark, but in any other environment that's, you know, quite typical of the game, you would catch, the light would catch on the gold belt buckle, these gold clasps, the whatever bits you call them in the glasses, and it coherently makes the character make sense, just visually and subtly. The nylon accents are the same material on his shoes as they are on his belt and on his suspenders. So visually it's quite coherent that if you were to sort of just glance at it from a distance, this is the same material as that. So they are in separate layers, and then it brings that design philosophy upward as well. So it all is quite coherent, and I think it's an interesting way to have characters be presented visually. So that's the sort of thought process that goes into these characters. I'm not sure if this one is finished or formatted right. This is a character, again, that has not yet been introduced in the games. She will appear in upcoming Silver Falls games, but I still need to, I think I'm still working on her makeup. I've got to create jewelry, necklace, bracelets. So this is a character named Luna Lovegood. Oh, not Luna. I'm sorry, that's the Harry Potter characters. Her name is Luna Solway. Yeah, I don't know. It just caught on my brain there. Yeah, this is Luna Solway. And in a very simple way, her materials are quite neutral, and so it doesn't say one way or another. It doesn't exactly say she's very rugged and outdoorsy. So with her design colors, I focused on the material of this nice saturated blue denim and a very I would say a more vintage looking yellow. You know, it's not something that really, you know, it's not overly, you know, canary yellow. It's more like a nice mellow yellow. And so with the design philosophy of that, her colors are blue, yellow, and white. And that's so she has a distinguishing color palette that's easy to make out, and she doesn't blend in with, there's a lot of characters in Silver Falls. If I'm not character, all the characters are going to blend together. So the philosophy behind her design is to layer the blue, yellow, and white together. It's quite subtle, but you can see that in the pattern of her shirt, is it's a layer of white, yellow, and blue. If you look at her blouse, can we hide this for a second? Let's go ahead and hide that, and you can see that this doesn't exactly have white. It sort of has a pale yellow, but it layers the blue and the yellow. We have a layer of a white band along the bottom of her shorts, and when you have a look at her shoes, it again layers the blue denim with this smooth yellow and white. And so coherently, I personally really like the way this character looks. I think she visually is quite eye-catching. So even if you zoom out and you can just glance at her, you can quickly identify, oh right, that must be Luna, not the Harry Potter character. This is Luna Solway. So again, and what would again help to build with the philosophy of layers in terms of the texture and the color is have earrings that are a color that matches the yellow. So you see we have yellow here, we're layered with the blue, we have yellow, and we have the white. And so layering yellow there in terms of earrings would make things really pop. What would also match well with that philosophy is yellow bracelets. And to go with that philosophy, again, we have a blue on her fingernails, so fingernail paint, and the blue would match that shade pretty closely on the shorts as well. So that's another character that I think the design was quite interesting on that. Let's see here. What else can I share? This is, all right, so for fans of Galaxy Bound Curse, which is our Game Boy Color game, you could download that for free from the website. I may have shown a look at Fred before on the channel, but I'm not sure where that video is. So I'll just share another close look at Fred Hardluck. So this is the first protagonist of Galaxy Bound Cursed on the Game Boy. And what I really wanted to include, because the Game Boy has green as its quite identifying color, I wanted to make sure that part of Fred's signature character color palette included a type of green that was reminiscent of sort of Game Boy green. So we have here duct taped to his suspenders is Mountain Fog cigarettes. I quite like how the box catches the light. I've set this up so if I wanted to animate this later on at some point, you could open that up. There are cigarettes in there, and you can see that the even the tape has imperfections on it that has it connected on there. And so the reason why he has that on there is he's no longer the sheriff; he's retired. But that's where he would have worn his sheriff's badge. There are upcoming games that have Fred, that you get to see him in the 80s. He wears the badge there, but he's no longer the sheriff, and that sort of, the cigarettes are comforting. They sort of take the spot because he feels like something's missing when he doesn't have his sheriff's badge. That's visual communication, visual storytelling. There's Silver Courage. I suppose that would be his favorite signature drink. He has this nice tartan pattern to his suspenders, and that adds, again, the idea of layers to your coloring. So you have this quite distinct green, sort of like a bluish green as well. There's a lot of detail. Wow, these boots are in really nice shape. They must be new. There's no dirt on those boots. So you have that nice green there. You have this very natural earthy brown, and then you have the green again here, layered on, and you have a nice representation there. So there's even the amount of gold and yellow that I have represented in the Mountain Fog box is supposed to subtly elicit the same color that you would have seen on a sheriff's badge. And I think this is actually, there's something missing from this hat. There's supposed to be, all right, this is the wrong color. There's supposed to be a band on the hat. You can see there's a brown one there, so this is the wrong texture for this hat, but that band is supposed to be green, and it would be the same shade as the boots. So you see how you have the green boots, the brown pants, you would have a brown hat with the green band on it. And this is the wrong texture. The actual texture for Fred's hat would be closer to this color on his pants. He's got this nice sort of corduroy thing going on here. And so that, and he's sort of geared down in life. And he's a bit older, so he's taking things easy. Maybe he's not running around, walking out to the shadows looking for galaxy-bound curses and whatnot. So in general, when I show characters that are kind of settled down and they have a more easygoing, kind of a slower geared lifestyle, I generally put just normal t-shirts on that. You'll probably notice in character designs for Silver Falls, not a lot of them wear just a plain t-shirt. They've all generally got some interesting layering to their clothing. Say, for example, here, I can find Fort here. Let's just grab this character. I quite like his design and bring him in. This is Fort Darrow, and I'm not sure. This might be an older version of him. There's a newer version that has a refined, a more realistic looking skin. What I will do is dial down this light now. This is too bright. Let's go ahead and dial that down a bit. There's something weird looking about this one. This must be an older revision. For example, it's not often I just put a character in a t-shirt. He's got a t-shirt. It's his favorite brand of clothing. It's extra wet. If anyone wants to put that into Google Translate and figure out what that says, feel free to. But that's his favorite brand. So Fort is a character that was introduced in the novel Heavy Shadow. I believe there are 17 chapters out right now. I can't remember off the top of my head. I've been working so hard on these games. But if you want to read Heavy Shadow, you can go to the Silver Falls website and you can read that for free. Hopefully this year I can finish the final 3 chapters, and then I can start producing paperback versions of the novel. Heavy Shadow will also come with a code linker system, so the novel will actually be able to unlock content in the games as well. One of my favorite things about Fort's design is he's meant to be quite a modern, up-to-date character. He's in his mid-20s, he's quite into technology, and I implemented this really cool. I just really like the way his clothing catches the light. You know, I think it adds a lot of dynamic to him. He's got pockets and a pants that kind of shows he's prepared. He's got these boots that show that he's quite outdoorsy, and he's got his hunting knife there, always attached to him, so he's prepared for any kind of threat. He has this shirt, but he also has thermals underneath as well, again expressing the concept that he's quite a prepared character. He's not just running around in a t-shirt, you know. So those should be physics animated as well, his shirt. But again, depending on the platform that I'm using these characters, I tend to enable or disable physics simulation depending on what console it is. Right, so that is Fort for Darrow. Anyway, I think I might wrap it up. The video's been running on a little bit, but just one more thing here. If I can bring this in. That's an older version. What I will do now is just grab SFC Sam. So people who have played 3 Down Stars will recognize Sam. And his design is quite different from the other characters in that he looks distinctly under-prepared in some way because he just has this shirt. Everyone else at this point, you know, well, except for Annelies, you know, she has a quite her own vibe to her. But all the male characters that you see in 3 Down Stars, they're quite, you know, they look quite prepared for things. Holt's got this cool jacket. Arnold's got a jacket. Moss, you know, he's got pouches and all sorts of equipment attached to him. And Sam, by design, is the least prepared looking male character in 3 Down Stars. And I don't want to spoil the story if you haven't played 3 Down Stars yet. But a large part of how I design the characters in terms of their clothes, the accessories that they have with them, is very heavily reliant on where that character is in their life and where their headspace is at. And this guy just doesn't have a lot, so he just has this thing, and he's quite exposed. Whereas all the other male characters are quite protected. You know, this is physics simulated, these goggles. But, you know, it shows that he is willing to carry some form of protection, especially, you know, if he's working as a mechanic. He doesn't want to get oil in the eyeballs or some sharp thing, you know, if he's grinding some metal. This is physics animated as well. So as he's running around, his hand wiping rag for wiping oil and grease off your hands, and a walkie-talkie. And I don't want to go too much into the details of what means what, as every character has their own things that mean things to them, and that's something that I leave for people to explore on their own as they play through the stories, they experience the events, and they learn more about these people, and then, you know, their character designs make more and more sense. One thing I would like to point out is this flower that is on Annelies' handbag. So in 3 Down Stars, Annelies has the highest carry capacity for items. So I guess this little bag that she carries, this can hold, you know, lots of items, I guess. You can put a couple shotguns in there if you wanted. And my favorite aspect about this design, this patch, is it mirrors her signature colors, which is this nice, bright, summery, breezy yellow and a vibrant, natural green. Those are her colors, so the flower matches that theme as well. And this earthy brown for her boots reflects the earth. So I wanted her to represent visually and just subconsciously she sort of represents a flower, which is something that I think is, it's quite pretty by nature. And you can see sort of the details. I just like the way the reflections catch on her boots at certain angles. Yeah, so thanks for coming around and watching the video. I hope this was interesting to you if you're interested in the games and you wanted to see more about the characters, and I hope this has been interesting. If you're new to the Silver Falls series, then I appreciate you stopping by. There are 2 games that you can grab for free on the website. That's Galaxy Bound Curse and Frontier Fighters Mini, and that's something you can play on a lot of different consoles. You can read the Heavy Shadow novel for free, and Ghoul Busters will be launching later this month for all 3DS models. It's going to launch in North America first at $9.99 US. It will launch a couple weeks later in the European regions for €9.99 euros. And hopefully I'll be able to share more news about our other Wii U and 3DS games that will be launching soon. So thanks very much for watching. I really appreciate you sticking around, and I hope you enjoyed taking a look at the characters and hearing about how I designed them. Okay, everyone, take care of yourselves, work hard, be well, and do your best.